I'm not sure if it's just me, but UK versus the World really gave me the same energy that Solar Power by Lorde did. Like, there was so much hype, and in theory, it would be iconic and incredible. And then when it came out, it's just, it's fine. It's fine. I can't help but feel like there were so many missed opportunities with this season. I mean, an international all-stars is an idea floated around by the fandom for a few years now. Getting the fiercest queens around the world all in one room competing for a crown sounds like a goldmine for television. But in reality, it ended up being a pretty tame season of television overall. Sure, the 1-2 punch of Jimbo and Pangina's eliminations sent shockwaves through the fandom, but besides that, what else will the season be remembered for? Drag Race's most iconic seasons have a myriad of moments that make them television gold. I mean, you could pick out great moments from every single episode. All Stars 2, Shut Up and Drive, The Mirror Face Crack, Reggie Rochu, Party, Detox eliminating Alyssa. Season 6 has Laganja feeling attacked, the entire Snatch game, Trinity's lip syncs, Darian vs. Dayla. This season has 2 iconic eliminations, and the rest just felt sort of filler. It starts off with a pretty boring variety show, a ball where all the looks the queens actually made were pretty forgettable, a RUMX that is just going to fall back into the pantheon of above-average RuMX songs. And I will say the Snatch game, though, was the true highlight of the season. But most of the season felt kind of copy and paste when it came to the challenges. There was nothing new brought to the table for this new kind of season. And that's what I was really hoping for. I was hoping for something that would make it feel different, make it feel grander. And yeah, in the end, it was just kind of, like I said, copy-paste from other seasons of Drag Race. I put a list together with all of the factors that I think led to this season being more lackluster than expected. And as we go through the season, I'll touch on all of these points. Like I've already said, I think uninspired challenges, queens just not on their A-games, at least how we expected them to come into this giant international all-star season. A shorter episode count than we're used to. I mean, 6 episodes. 6 measly episodes. I mean, that's how long All Stars 1 was. I was really disappointed when I saw how short the season was going to be. Not that it needed to be the 25 episode cycle that season 14 is turning out to be, but even just like the 8 or the 10 episodes, like a regular All Star season, would make it feel bigger in scale. I mean, All Star 6 was 12 episodes, and it felt like one of the biggest All-Star seasons we've ever had. So why not give us something more on that scale for something that is so huge like an international All-Star season? Overused format and no prize money. I think almost all of my issues that I listed with the season go back to the fact that the season just, wasn't as big or as important as it could have been. I mean, it drops on WoW Presents Plus every Tuesday, and people discuss it for a little while, but it airing alongside Season 14, which is just an overall better season, and more in the zeitgeist with it airing on cable television and not a streaming service, I think it really undermines UK versus the World as a whole. Now, BBC commissioned for the season. I don't know if commissioned is the right word, but that's what makes sense to me. So obviously there are all kinds of rights issues there that can't just be avoided, which I think led to there being no prize money and it being relegated to just being a WoW Plus TV show over here in the US. But let's be honest, the only people paying for a WoW subscription are the diehard fans. And with it airing on Tuesdays and then season 14 airing on Fridays, many gay bars just aren't having the big viewing parties for it that other people outside of the diehard fans would get to watch it. And this is obvious by the social media numbers that the queens have gained since the season started, which is, not many, especially compared to what a lot of the All-Star 6 queens got. I mean, outside of Pangina, no one really got anything major from this season when it comes to, like, a boost in followers. And Pangina was by far the biggest success of this season, even if she got cut, 2 episodes before the finale, which we'll get to. And I was really worried for All Stars 6 being a Paramount Plus exclusive, but because it was the only main Drag Race show airing at the time, and the promo was extensive, it actually was a huge success. But instead, my worries for All Star 6 occurred for UK versus the world. Now, can we discuss the prize money for a second, too? I mean, I understand there's not much World of Wonder can do about UK laws and how they're allowed to give out prizes on television, but damn, can't you just film it in another country or find a loophole or something? Because I'm sorry, if I was competing for $0 or for $100,000, I'm going to put way more effort in if there's $100,000 on the line. And at least on a regular Drag Race UK season, the girls aren't competing for money, but they're competing for exposure and just getting their name out there and getting the fandom to know who they are is going to do wonders for their career. But a lot of these queens on UK versus the world, I mean, we all know who Jujubee is. We all know who Jimbo is and Lemon. I mean, outside of Pangina and Janie, I would say every queen who was on this season wasn't on there for the exposure. I mean, obviously they were, but they didn't need the exposure that the queens on a regular UK season do. So the fact that they're competing for no prize money, I think was very prevalent and evident in the final outcome of the show. I mean, that was very much the vibe that I got, at least. We've seen these queens at the top of their games in prior seasons, and it just seemed like a lot of them didn't put in the effort we've seen them put in before. I mean, Mo demolished All Stars 4, Jujubee on All Stars 5, Baga and Cheryl, they did way better on UK 1, Lemon did better on Canada 1, and not just by placements, but by the effort it seemed like they were putting in. It seemed like the only queens who were really excited and excelled on this season were the ones with something to prove to the fandom. Janie and Pangina, since their respective shows weren't watched by as many people, and Jimbo and Blue, since they hadn't reached their full potential on their original seasons. I mean, watching Jujubee on this season was like watching Parvati on Survivor Winners at War. Come on, where my Survivor stands at. I mean, a legend of the franchise who has done well the last 3 times they competed, but come back and just can't meet the same level. And my heart shattered watching both of them because of how much I love them. But now's a good time to maybe talk about Jujubee because what the fandom has said about her, how they've treated her, the things that they tag her in and the things that they comment on, her Instagram posts with, is honestly disgusting behavior for someone who has proven time and time again that they are a Drag Race legend. And, I hope that the people that said all of those horrible things to Jujubee watched this last episode, saw what she went through right before she left for filming, and feel like a piece of shit. Because, yeah, it's obvious that so many people in this fandom, and again, I don't want to call them fans because no fan is going to go to a queen's social media and say the horrible things that they do, but so many people watch this show and they only see the queen's worth based on how well they do in the competition, right? Jujubee completely demolished every episode of All Stars 5, and the fandom props her up as a legend. She comes back and just doesn't meet the expectations that were put on her in UK versus the world, and suddenly her comment section is filled with hate and vitriol and just nasty comments. And that is just a huge problem because, I mean, Jujubee is going to be a legend whether she comes back again and flops or comes back 4 more times and flops. Like, she will always be a Drag Race legend. She will always be an incredible drag artist. And how you do on a television show doesn't necessarily tell how good you are at drag, right? There's been so many queens. Milk, a great example, an amazing drag queen, but we've seen her not be amazing at Drag Race. Now, does that mean she sucks? She should stop doing drag? Why even bother? You suck at Drag Race? No, because in the real world, she is an incredible, gorgeous, talented, iconic drag queen. And she doesn't have to do well at Drag Race for the other statement to be true. And I just wish people saw that. So yeah, I'm very happy that Juju made it as far as she did, and we got another full season with Jujubee, but I am very sad to see how she has been turned on by so many people in her comment section. So yeah, just do better. I mean, is it really that hard to just not be a complete asshole? I'm starting to believe that it is, because I have to keep mentioning on every single video that I make, this week the fandom attacked this queen, this week the fandom attacked this queen. Like, yeah, if you see it, call it out. So let's get back to just the season as a whole. I'm gonna say something that's gonna be pretty controversial, but I'm hoping by the end of this video I've made an argument for my opinion and for my case. Despite all of the things that I've said so far, I don't think this season was very rigged. Now, it did have its moments, for sure, like any season does, but I think the fandom has been throwing the word rigged left and right when the season's been airing, and I just don't see it that way. But as always, we're going to go episode by episode and discuss what I felt was rigged and what I felt was not. So let's start with episode 1, the variety show. I just said there wasn't a ton of Riggory, but there definitely was some that I saw in this episode. Now, let's talk about Canada's sweet and sour heart, Lemon. Losing Lemon first, I think, was one of the biggest mistakes of this entire season. It gave losing Derek Barry first on All Stars 5 tease, where someone who makes some of the best television goes home right away, and I do think the season lacked because of it. I just don't mean that because she's a big fan favorite. The runways that she brought, her confessionals, her fire that she would have brought to these challenges, I really think this season missed out on not having Lemon around a bit longer. Now, Lemon is put into the bottom and given the main critique that what she did was something the judges has seen before. And to that, I have to say, there was only 2 performances in this entire talent show, variety show, whatever you want to call it, that did anything original that we haven't seen before in a previous variety show. Jimbo's baloney clown and Blue's puppet dance were the only performances that brought any aspect that we haven't seen before. So that critique felt very forced to me, especially when you had Mo and Jujubee doing virtually the same exact thing that they did in their last variety show, and for both of them it wasn't as good as they did it before. So I could see them putting Lemon low and commenting on her being kind of deadpan in the face throughout the performance. But, I mean, how can you say you were the least entertained by Lemon jumping into a split off a 5-foot box when, Mo and Baga and Cheryl were right there? Cheryl also commented after the episode aired that part of her routine was cut for TV, but unlike with Jan's on All Star 6, I wasn't able to figure out what exactly was cut. So whether that was to save her or to hurt her, I guess we'll never know. I'm assuming that they might have cut something that would have kept her from the top, because I don't think Cheryl would have mentioned it if they cut something like her falling, like pheromone or something. So yeah, Cheryl, I guess, is going to be a mystery for now, but maybe something else will come out in a little bit about what she would have done or what was cut from her variety show performance. There was also a ton of discourse over Baga Chipz being in the top, and I have to say I do agree. I do think her performance felt more like karaoke rather than like a planned out performance. This challenge, I think, is the perfect example of why I think the queens should get a stipend for the variety show. Because all of these felt very boring. I mean, the top 3, I think, was very clearly Pangina, Jimbo, and Blue, and everyone else was just varying levels of average. If they get, let's say, $5,000, go make a talent show, do whatever you want, think about what they could have done. I mean, this challenge has been done so many times now, unless the queens are able to have, backup dancers and sets and props, kind of like they did in All Stars 5, I honestly don't see a reason why it should continue to be included. It definitely felt stale this season, and especially since we've seen 2 queens on the season do it prior and do it better, it just didn't feel necessary. Now, Lemon gets sent home by Pangina, and I think that was the best strategic decision Pangina could have made. Keeping Janie, someone else without lots of connections on the season, bodes well for Pangina moving forward. I think she was worried in the endgame, if it was just UK, US, and Canada girls, that she would be the odd queen out, and it would be very easy for them to just send her home. I know the queens have to be vague about who they're going to send home during deliberations to keep the tension high and the audience guessing, but I wish they were just able to more openly discuss their strategy in the confessional and tell us what they were actually thinking instead of just giving reasons why they should keep and get rid of everyone. I think delving into more of their true thought process and strategy would be way more interesting than the overdone fake stuff that they have to do every single week. So let's move on to episode 2, which was the RuPaul Ball. A pretty lazy ball concept, especially since the first 2 looks didn't have a ton to do with RuPaul. I mean, Kitty Girl, fine, she has a song named that, but like Butch Queen, and then they have to make a dress that RuPaul would wear. I mean, these are the vaguest categories, and Kitty Girl has already been a runway prompt we've seen done before, so overall, I was just kind of like, okay, let's just get through these looks then. I mean, for like RuPaul Ball, I was thinking maybe like a genderfuck look to go back to her roots, and then do like a suit look based off her workroom suits, and then the last dress based off something she would wear on the runway. That seems more inspired and interesting than Kitty Girl, Butch Queen, and RuPaul dress. So yeah, the challenge ended up being a little bit lackluster. There were some really solid looks that the queens brought from home. Baga and Pangina's cat looks, Blue, Jimbo, and Mo's Butch Queen looks. But for all of the looks that the queens actually made themselves, they were pretty forgettable. And Janie and Jimbo end up winning since their looks read the most RuPaul. Now, a lot of people said Janie being in the top was Riggory, but I don't see it that way. Her first look was very Party City, but I liked the concept and the execution of her second look, and I do think of all of the third category looks, hers was the most RuPaul. Like, of all of those looks, if I'm just looking, I think hers is the one I would go to and say that's the RuPaul look. Jimbo was far and away, though, the winner of this challenge. I mean, all 3 of her looks were amazing. If only she could lip sync. Now, Cheryl gets sent home, and again, people were really upset about this, but Cheryl had the worst RuPaul look of the week, and I never count a queen's decision as rigged, because even if it's not the choice that I would have made or us as the fandom would have made, they're given the power to make whatever choice they want, and we as viewers have to accept that. The next episode is the Rusical, where Juju wins the mini challenge and then gets to give out the roles. So she gives herself the Liza Minnelli role, and I was really excited to see where she was going to go with this because, I mean, Juju is hilarious, and I really thought that she could nail all of the Liza-isms, right? And I was super excited also to see Jimbo be a literal dog, like, as her role. Like, what else would be better for Jimbo to have as just go be a dog? Well, you see who the bottom 2 are, and I can't argue with it. I mean, Juju did a solid job as Jujubee, but besides the look, there was nothing that said Liza about her performance. I mean, Liza has so many iconic little bits that she does, and it felt like Juju didn't do a single one of them. And especially because she chose the role herself, I think it was very disappointing. And the runway look that week just kind of sealed the deal for me. But can we talk about Jujubee and her runway looks for just a moment? If you have seen her post-season interviews, she actually goes into detail about how some of her runway looks came to be and said that a couple of her designers pulled out at the last second. And it was up to her and the one designer that she had left to kind of put everything together, and they definitely had to rush it just to make sure that she had something for every category before she left. So yeah, it seems like a lot of things that happened to Juju were out of her control this season, and it makes me feel for her even more that, you know, the fandom attacked her like they did, and she ended up where she is now. Because, yeah, I mean, obviously, Jujubee didn't meet the expectations that were given to her. I would say the only queens this season who exceeded expectations were Jimbo and Pangina, and somewhat Blue. And 2 of those 3 got sniped out before even the semifinals. So while I can accept the decisions that were made to eliminate the threats, it does lead to a somewhat disappointing finale when it feels like not every queen has earned their spot. Another queen who got tons of negative attention this season was Baga Chipz. Now, one reason for this is definitely the edit. I mean, they did not hold back in showing every negative moment she had on set. And it wasn't until episode 5 that they showed her in any positive light at all when she goes into her past addictions. And I think that edit led to a lot of the cries of Riggory when it came to Baga. But I have to be honest, I think a lot of the fans' negative feelings towards Baga clouded their judgment of her performance in the season. And I mean, I've been guilty of this too. There's a queen you just don't vibe with, right? And those negative feelings towards them can make you diminish their triumphs or look at an average performance and see it as terrible. Remember when I said Gigi Goode didn't deserve to win Snatch Game 2 years ago? No, I don't agree with that anymore. I have seen the light. I've moved on. But it's very that. And people were calling for Baga to be in the bottom 2 in the variety show, in the ball, and now here in the Rusical. But I want to just break it down real quick. In the variety show, Baga had the best vocals of the day. I mean, she sounded amazing and was oozing with personality. Even if her talent was, you know, karaoke, like I said, it was at least like fun and kitschy and very Baga. In the ball, there were definite issues with her third look. I mean, the length was off, the fabric looked cheap, and it was kind of simple, but it also definitely read classic RuPaul. And her first 2 looks were strong enough, I think, to keep her out of the bottom. I would put her like low at worst. And now here in the Rusical. So she complained basically the entire episode about not getting the part that she wanted, and I think that like grading behavior definitely prepped the audience to already not be impressed with whatever her performance was going to be. If you watch it, is it Baga at her best? No. If she was happy with her part, I think she could have given it even more than she did. But I mean, she hits every move, she makes the judges laugh a couple of times, and I think she does perfectly fine. Someone who I think got the short end of the stick this episode actually is Blue. After being in the top the first week, she was just safe the following 2 weeks, but she gave 3 solid looks in the ball, and now here in the Rusical, I definitely felt like her performance, paired with this incredible runway, was deserving of at least a high placement. But Pangina gives the lip sync performance of the season, eliminates Jimbo in a shocking but respectable move, and we're going to see that it's going to bite her in the ass the following week, which is Snatch Game. I hate, I think we all do, this stupid if you're not in the top, you're in the bottom twist. Hated it on All Stars 5, and I hate it here, because there was such a clear-cut bottom to this episode of Pangina and Janie. Putting Mo and Juju in the bottom 2 just kind of ruins their track records for no reason other than to cause drama and give the top girls more options on who to send home and to shake things up. But here it truly makes no sense because the 2 big threats to send home were already the bottom 2 anyways. So having Mo and Juju there does nothing to add drama. The drama was already there with the only 2 previous challenge winners now being the bottom 2. That was the only Riggory this episode. I mean, the top 2 is very clear. I do think the producers kind of missed out on a major story opportunity in not giving the lip sync win to Baga so she could send home Pangina and avenge her friend Jimbo. I mean, Blue definitely won the lip sync, but I thought it was close enough that they could just give it to Baga and have that storyline play out, where Baga then sends home Pangina and is like, this is for Jimbo. Yeah, I mean, Baga was clearly the best in Snatch Game 2, so it wouldn't have felt like super unwarranted. But maybe it was more gaggy then to see Blue do it, since she didn't have the motive that Baga did to make such a move. Regardless, this is the moment from the season everyone will remember for the test of time. Pangina's sobs as RuPaul is like, all right, let's go home. So that leads us to the top 5, where they do a RUMX to RuPaul's song London. And I absolutely loved the concept of this challenge. The queens all doing verses about where they come from. It's just a great way to kind of top off the end of the season. I just wish it was like choreographed by Jamal or a professional choreographer. When the queens do their own choreo, it just doesn't have the same like epicness, doesn't push them as hard as when a choreographer comes in and tells them, here's what we're going to do. I mean, we saw how Baga, though, like struggled with the choreo that they did themselves. So how would she have done with like Read You, Wrote You level choreo? I'm not sure. Again, it's just like a little thing they could have done to make the season feel bigger and grander. Now, this episode, it was very top 4, bottom 1 energy. I thought Baga, Blue, Mo, and Juju all excelled. It's obvious that they chose Mo and Juju as the top 2 to even out the finale. All 4 would then have a top 2 placement. But I do think that Baga and Blue had a better overall performance than Juju in this challenge. Also, Juju shining in a challenge and having an incredible runway is just like a great way to end her story arc for the season, finally snagging a win and redeeming herself from earlier in the season. I mean, the lip sync between Mo and Juju was close enough they could have given it to either one of them, but Juju just had more narrative payoff to being the winner than Mo did at this point, so it made sense why Juju was given the win. Speaking of Mo, what an interesting run for her. It's not what I expected at all when I saw her on this cast. I mean, I sort of expected her to dominate, and instead, she fell into the middle for a lot of the season. Her runways and her personality always shined, as always, but the drive and the fight that were so prevalent to her arc on All Stars 4 felt missing here. Whether it was a lack of prize money or just not focused on in her edit, I'm not sure. But I also just wanted to comment on Baga's critiques for her work of art runway look. The judges enjoyed it, mentioned that it was crafty, but that they didn't mind because it was so Baga and they loved it. And that just didn't sit right with me when like these two looks were also called crafty, but critiqued negatively because of it. I think this is where some of that Baga favoritism does come in. So Janie is sent home. It's sad because she dominated the middle part of the season, but also because she was the last underdog left, being the only queen from her franchise and doing so well and lasting so long. I would have loved to see her make it to the finale, but now it's just UK versus US, which was my major problem with the season and what I was worried would happen. Since the BBC commissioned the season, I was worried that meant UK queens were going to be pushed to the end. I mean, it's pretty clear they probably asked for UK queens to make up a third of the cast, so I thought it was definitely possible they would also ask for UK representation in the finale, or maybe even for a crown. And well, I mean, here we are. The entire finale is just UK and US queens, and it feels like the queens from other franchises who worked harder and did better get sidelined and eliminated. The Panginas, the Jimbos, the Janies, partly because of the bonds and alliances made between the US and the US girls who just had more allies in the competition, partly because I think production wanted to see the most popular queens in the end. And unfortunately, UK and US Drag Race are the two biggest franchises at the moment. And now, looking at the finale, again, I mean, it's the same problem I feel like I had with most of the season. It felt like they just weren't trying that hard. I mean, Mo and Juju are two of the fiercest lip syncers we have ever seen. Think about like Juju in Make Me Feel, or Mo in Sissy That Walk. This finale felt like they were giving half of that energy. And I mean, these songs, oh my gosh, these songs were iconic. I popped my bussy to the Reflex literally the other day harder than Juju did on that stage for the literal crown. It really felt like Baga and Blue were trying pretty hard. I mean, that was a really good lip sync out of Baga. And Blue did super well in both of hers as well. Very energetic. You could tell she was fighting. So maybe my theory about the BBC wanting a UK queen to win was right. I mean, I don't want to say that Juju and Mo were asked to not try as hard or like give up in the end, but it just felt weird that the two US queens were giving half of the energy they normally do, while the UK queens were giving it like everything they had. Overall, I am happy that Blue Hydrangea wins. I mean, she was very, very consistent throughout the entire season. If I was judging, I don't think she would have had a bottom placement at all throughout the entire season. But it's one of those things where, I mean, Pangina is the real winner of the season, right? In the eyes of the fandom, in the eyes of what success she's going to get from this, Pangina comes away with most of it. So I do feel bad for Blue that because of the situations that happened, she wins, but like with an asterisk next to it. I mean, it was kind of like Trixie winning All Stars 3, right? Like, it's Trixie Mattel that won, asterisk, because Shangela and Bendela weren't there. This is sort of Blue Hydrangea won because Pangina wasn't there. But yeah, I mean, I love Blue Hydrangea. She is so talented. I followed her since before she was even on UK1, and I'm so happy to see her finally reach her full potential, and she slayed this entire season. So congrats to the gal. Congrats to all of the gals on UK versus the World. I know I've been sort of, low on the season a little bit, but it's only because I love all of these queens. I mean, all 9 of them, I think, are absolute stars. I'm obsessed with all of them. And I just wanted this season to be bigger for them, for their careers. And I feel like they're not going to get as big of a boost as, let's say, even the All-Star 6 girls got from being on that season. And it makes me sad because I want them to be, you know, at the top of their game. I want them to get every opportunity in the world, and I want them to be given a season that is worthy of their presence, right? This one, it felt a little rushed. It felt like production was just trying it out, and this was the trial run. So maybe if this Canada versus the World is really happening, we get some of these issues fixed, and we get it on a grander scale. Because overall, I was whelmed. The challenges were whelming. The performances were whelming. The runways, whelming. And for any regular season, that doesn't mean it's a bad season, but this is international All-Stars. UK versus the world. It should feel big and grand, and honestly, a regular season of American Drag Race felt like a much bigger deal than this All-Star season did. So I am just disappointed. But I want to know what you think. Do you think that I'm being really hard on it? Do you think I had like unrealistic expectations going into it? Or do you agree? Do you think this could have been a bigger, grander season? One good thing that came from it, though, is Pangina and Jimbo and Janie all reaching an international audience and showing that they are truly drag excellence, growing their superstardom even greater than before. And honestly, I feel like the format that will be in the upcoming all-winter season would work even better for this season, too. If you know, you know. Okay, enough complaining about this season. I'm going to go rewatch the last episode of Season 14 again because I'm obsessed with Season 14 of Drag Race. If you follow the channel and the icon, but see, she's having not the greatest time right now. YouTube actually demonetized her because they thought she was a robot. I'm not going to speak on it, but Butterface is literally right there, YouTube. So if you want to support our legend Bootsy, there is a link right here to her Patreon or to her PayPal if you want to tip her. Also, she's doing all kinds of shows in Canada right now, so if you want to support her by going to her shows, that is also a great way. And yeah, let's just all rally around and support this legend of our community who is going through kind of a rough time right now. Here are the links to all of my social medias, as well as my Patreon, which I have just uploaded a patron-only video, and there's another patron-only video coming out soon. So if you want those, you can get them at the $5 tier, and it's a great way to support me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say in the comments, because I feel like from what I see on Twitter and stuff, it's pretty mixed, right? People are excited about certain parts of it. They're also kind of let down in others. So I want to know, now that the whole season is aired, what is your final thoughts? Let me know in the comments, and let me know if you think that anything that I said was rigged or wasn't rigged you disagree with. It's been a surprisingly short day solving the mystery of who's the real villain of UK versus the world. Not Blue, not Jimbo, it's Jujubee's flaky designers. It is criminal that that drag icon had to step on the runway in this. Alright, I will see you guys all in the next one.